compliance on the part of CBN. And when I say compliance, what I'm trying to speak about is that the only institution outside of all that you do that has the responsibility to oversight the CBN is the Senate Committee, the National Assembly. And you will recall that the last session we had in November, we requested for some certain documents that will enable us to perform this responsibility. And such information will include things like the management letters issued by the auditors of CBN, the audited accounts of CBN, the management account for 2023, and more importantly, the budget of CBN. Now, it's good that I clarify further. Why these are needed is that, look, for us to perform our roles as legislators, we cannot be groping in the dark. We need to be able to see and also even know how we are navigating. Let me give you an example. If you take your 2022 accounts that was published after a very long delay, it will surprise most of us that in your expenditure component, there is just one item called other operating expenses, accounted for 75% of total expenditure. I don't know how you want us to explain that to the public.
We have inflation hitting this country. Officially, they said 28.9. It's not 28.9. It's more than 28.9. Because almost about 70% of Nigerians today cannot boast of having 3 square miles. What are we doing about that? It is our responsibility to find a way out of it. Unemployment is high, almost about 37%. So when you are talking of hunger, that is poverty. And that is what we call insecurity. Will Central Bank be able to tell me that what Brazil is doing, what Brazil Development Bank is doing, Central Bank has done it in Nigeria? We must tell ourselves the truth. These policies are not working. For some time, the Central Bank closed the OMO market to allow the market to dictate itself. And I'm asking, has that worked? There is no country that will allow such freelance in its foreign exchange policy. When last have you heard, either in UK, Saudi Arabia, even in some of the developing countries, where you allow your foreign exchange to skyrocket? It's not done. It's only countries like Zimbabwe that will allow that. But we are in a country with talented people. We have some of the best economists in this country. The CBN governor, you are a banker. If your bank is not working, assuming you are a managing director of a commercial bank, the basis of you having that bank is to make sure that you provide services and be able to make profits for your investors. Which investor today in Nigeria or a foreign investor would be very scared to bring his investment to this country? The NNPC funded federal government road infrastructure development as well. Over 2.something trillion was approved. As at last count, almost 700 and something billion has been released. Where are the roads? Where are the roads? If construction is going on, more employment has been taken, more of economic activities will crop up. I have not seen the roads, and Nigerians want to know what is happening with that.
We must go back to abolish the use of dollar. Using of dollar in any shop, in any hotel, in any place in Nigeria should be abomination. Nobody should use dollar for any transaction in Nigeria. Nobody should be seen with dollar, except the authorized dealers. In South Africa, nobody buys anything with dollars. I can see maybe shops in Abuja putting their goods to be bought by dollars. So what have you done specifically? Do you have in terms of encouraging FDI? Because with where we are now, there's no foreign direct investment that will come to Nigeria. I'm very positive. People are leaving. And what effort have you made to bring to book those $2.73 billion that you say that they forged the documents? Who are the Nigerians that forged these documents? You must bring them to book. And you must make it public. So we as legislators, because people are attacking us. I can't go to my constituency. If I go to my constituency, people are hungry, people are shouting on us, and people think we, the senators, are the cause of the economic problem.
The concept of Japanese being successful, they have what they call Wagaya session. Wagaya session is a situation where you lock yourselves in the room, open eyes, and tell yourselves the truth. I think that needs to be done from every arm of the government. It's very serious, because the way the country is going, everybody knows, everybody is seeing it, then in our hands it falls off. Make that Wagaya sessions within yourself, expand it to relevant groups.
The coordinating minister of the economy and also the governor of Central Bank. The National Assembly has approved close to about $21 billion foreign loans on your borrowing plan. We want to know how much of this loan has been received and what has been used so far. Have we started applying the loans to the critical sectors of the economy? If so, what is the impact?
In economics, we normally discard the long term. The medium term is when the benefits of the major improvements to the economic framework will begin to yield fruit. As you yourself have mentioned, there has been long delay in changing to a path of policies that are sustainable in terms of revenue, in terms of expenditure, and in terms of the industrial policies that will grow the economy. So let us focus, as you have done, on the very short term, where the issue of inflation and related issue of foreign exchange depreciation are the major concern. And let me say that, the senator talked also about the market and the fact that you just cannot leave things to the market. While this administration does believe that in most cases, market activity may deliver, in most circumstances, the kind of outcomes that we want. We also understand that there are contexts in which the market will not deliver the desired results. And it's the appreciation of this particular fact that has led to the intervention, the idea of intervening in the marketplace on behalf of the poor and the most vulnerable. That is the underpinning. And yes, whilst distinguished senator from, I think, Jigawa talked about the fact that there is direct payments, he will prefer productive sector intervention. The two are not mutually exclusive. In this short initial time period, as is being done in the agricultural sector, provision of food, as well as, and I will come back to the issue of production of food in Nigeria by Nigerians versus perhaps relying on imports. But in terms of the social protection, that is uppermost at the moment. And while the social protection measures, direct payments during the COVID pandemic worldwide, it was seen that poverty reduced with direct payments properly done, biometrically verified. Two people left them with that choice of what was the most, where the shoe pinched the most, and it led to a reduction in poverty. It is proven empirically worldwide. So that is why that is an issue that is being looked at now in order to make the whole process more effective. And the commitment is to, as soon as possible, to resume the social investment program and the safety net for Nigerians, particularly at this time. And I will use, as you said, having the privilege of being the coordinating minister, I will use that to also say that whilst my colleague, my friend, my brother, the CBN governor is here, I will speak a little bit, given that it's important for us to understand in this period of reform that it's imperative for the government to have a clear direction. And in this regard, of course, Central Bank is working to deliver a foreign exchange market that is transparent, has rules and processes, and captures all but perhaps the smallest transaction. Is another type of intervention. You know, it's important at this time that we design interventions that avoid, at this period of reform and vulnerability, market capture, state capture. Those with the power and dominance of markets should not be allowed to use that to profit unnecessarily. And therefore, it's a role of government to put in place structures that avoid that. And you know, in some circumstances, intervention is even more, shall I say, discreet or subtle. The deployment of moral suasion, where persuasion is used to dialogue with major operators and major actors. And you know, it is the government that will decide at any given time which is the best lever to use. So in the short term, the commitment is to face the pains of Nigerians and to do everything that can be done to ease those pains. And of course, on the foreign exchange side, to achieve stability. But I can assure us here that in the medium term, the set of measures that have been taken to improve revenue, starting with oil revenue, which gives both dollars and naira, and is the key in the very short term to having a boost to the economy. To non-oil revenue, domestic revenue, major tax reforms are underway, not to increase the rate of tax, but to improve. Senators, you yourselves admonished us to ensure that the revenue that is due to the Consolidated Revenue Fund is brought in judiciously, efficiently, and on a timely manner. That is being done using technology. Expenditure, we are looking at ensuring that government expenditure is carefully spent. Even Mr. President has reduced his own expenditure. And so, for the medium term, let us be assured that the monetary and the fiscal policies which are being implemented are going to lead to increase in production, increased funding for the government to play its own role. And I would just like to say that just yesterday, Mr. President hosted, amongst other people, the Managing Director Operations of the World Bank. And the message was, she had just come from Turkey, just come from another, because she covers the whole world. And it is the same everywhere. Difficult reforms take time for the benefits to come through. And our duty is to ensure that in the short term we minimize the pains to the poor and the most vulnerable. Thank you.
The managing director even said that one of the experiences, particularly from Turkey, how do you ensure that you don't lose some of the stakeholders while the lack of the economic reforms are taking time to have a positive effect? And then equally, because again, this came up yesterday in another meeting, and it has been touched upon here. And from our perspective, particularly from budget and planning to material, there are places today in about maybe 18 states in the country where you can still plant rice for the dry season farming. But including the constituency of the respected chairman of the national planning in 5 local government offices, but where if care is not taken, not for reasons of insecurity, 70% of the planted area might not be planted because of fuel cost. Fuel. And the same thing in the constituency of respected my brother, Senator Aleru, and I'm sure in a number of places. So the balancing of the reforms and ensuring that the necessary measures have been implemented urgently in order to ensure that we even support the reform, and I think that's the point made by Senator Aleru, that and as the commendable act of removing fuel subsidy needs to be supported by measures that support domestic production in order to achieve the full impact and benefit of that. Thank you.
Food security. Food security itself is the availability, affordability, and accessibility of food. Today we have a challenge of affordability of food and also availability in some cases. Partly, like other speakers have mentioned, we have been challenged over a period of quite some time since COVID. COVID has an impact on agriculture, like in all other sectors. At the same time, if you remember the flooding of 2021, 2022, and also the Naira redesign of 2022, 2023, just at the point of harvest in 2022, government came out with a policy of change of Naira, and that really impacted on the availability of cash. In 2023 early, farmers, when they were just preparing for planting in 2023, had no cash whatsoever anywhere. And access to capital for farmers is very key, and there was no access for farmers. And in addition, an exiting government, I don't want to say this much, but an exiting government did not plan to do the cultivation, wet season cultivation for 2023. I don't think there was any impact or any direct intervention by government against the 2023 cultivation. And that also impacted on the quantum of harvest that we had in 2023. We have not had any harvest since the one in 2023 up till now. But it was a tall order for farmers to come up with their own portion. So what we're trying to do is trying to bridge that gap. But we don't want to make it a situation where it will be viewed as the other programs in the past where they felt it was a largesse. But farmers are willing to go back to farm. They're excited about it. But there are challenges, like we all know, insecurity and even fuel costs. But we're trying to assiduously work with the Minister of Finance to support. The President has already given us his support on the second phase, and we intend to do anywhere between 200 and 250,000 hectares for rice alone in the dry season farming. So that will be, like a short, medium term. But let me say for the short term, as we speak now, there is scarcity of paddy and there is, in fact, scarcity of maize. The next phase, we have about 50,000 hectares of maize to cultivate in the dry season for now. Luckily, maize you can do multiple cropping as long as there's irrigation. But what we are faced with today is the export, or rather undocumented export of food to our neighboring countries. Today, the sefa is one sefa is 2 naira 20 kobo. That's to say 1,000 sefa, which is what they call 1,000 sefa, is 2,200. This is something that was 400, 500 naira some few years ago. So when you look at our neighboring countries, all 4 countries around us have this sefa, which is hard currency. And because of the devaluation of the naira, our food, in terms of all their own food, is the cheapest around the neighborhood. So you find a lot of undocumented export, which is smuggling across our porous borders into these neighboring countries. Then in addition, again, the other angle that we have noticed over the period is the unavailability of foreign exchange. A lot of investors, be it Indians, Chinese, Turkeys, that are operating in this country, buy our crops that are sought after outside, like soybeans and sesame, and buy it at exorbitant price just to earn foreign exchange when they go out there and sell it and earn foreign exchange. The bad thing about it is that most of these monies are not repatriated back. Exports is a good thing for us, but when it's not repatriated and when the government does not derive any income from it, then I'm sorry, that's not a good sign. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to ramp up production. I think it's an issue of economics between supply and demand. But what we are faced with, unfortunately, is we have to see how we can secure food for our 230 million people, and at the same time, if these economics continue, then you have to either seal up the border, which is against the ECOWAS issue, or produce for all of West Africa. That's the unfortunate thing. But if we can secure the land and have farmers go back to the farms, I'm sure we can do it. We have 70 million hectares available in Nigeria. So these are the challenges that we find ourselves in. But I'm happy we'll soon roll out within the next 8 days to 10 days with the support of Mr. President and the coordinating Minister of Economy that we're going to support the farmers for the dry season farming. Thank you.
Thank you. To appear before this Joint Senate Committee on Finance, Banking, Insurance, and other financial institutions and national planning to address critical concerns related to exchange rates and inflationary pressures in the economy. Indeed, this is the major topic of concern in our villages, our towns, and our cities. The urgency of the matter is not lost on us at the Central Bank, and I assure you, we are working tirelessly with colleagues across government, including with the leadership of the National Assembly, to bring lasting solutions. Inflation. In December 2023, the economic landscape reveals significant shifts. The headline inflation stood at 28.92% in December 2023, as against 28.2% in November. Food inflation was 33.93%, as against 32.84% in November, while core inflation was 23.06%, as against 22.38% in October 2023. Headline inflation surged to 28.92%, propelled by food shortages, distribution channels, and seasonal trends. The festive season's consumer demand upsurge, following subdued periods due to energy and foreign exchange reforms, contributed to this trend, persisting from November through December yearly. The upward trend of food inflation is primarily due to supply shocks caused by insecurity, climate-induced factors such as flood and rainfall shortage in some cases, inefficient, subsistent, and seasonal farming practices, as well as importation bottlenecks that have impacted the prices of imported food items. Anecdotal evidence indicates that recent exchange rate volatility has fueled more foreign demands for agricultural products, especially from neighboring countries, which was alluded to earlier. While this presents an opportunity to expand and boost agricultural output, hence creating jobs in the sector, supply constraint exacerbated demand.
Stephen Governor, I think what we did here was we asked specific questions.
Yes.
And as someone, sir, I object to this.
Let him go back and answer the questions.
The Emergency Committee on Food Security, set up by the President, has been taking a number of measures, and we see an end in sight to the persistent rise of food inflation. On our side at the CBN, we have responded with significant monetary policy tightening to rein in inflationary pressures. Empirical analysis has established that money supply is one of the factors fueling the current inflationary pressure. For instance, an analysis of the trend of money supply spanning over 9 months showed that M3 increased from 52 trillion in January 2023 to 68.2 trillion in November 2023, representing 16.24 trillion or 31% increase over the period. Increase in net foreign assets following the harmonization of exchange rates and ways and means advances were the major factors driving the increase in money supply. We have also halted quasi-fiscal measures totaling over 10 trillion naira by the central bank, previously disguised as development finance interventions. These measures had contributed to increase in money supply, thereby raising prices to the level of inflation we are grappling with today. And if I may, can I just expand by saying that on the issue of development finance, we are coming to terms with a large amount of liquidity that was pumped into the system that created a lot of distortions, and sadly, a lot of it didn't get to where it was designed to get to. What we're trying to ensure is that going forward, we do not run the risk of failed interventions. So for the avoidance of doubt, we are not saying that we do not believe in interventions. No. All we are saying is that we do not have the capacity as a central bank to engage in interventions, and that we will work closely with those that have that ability, and in fact help them to create capacity where it doesn't exist, and also to be a convening mechanism for those that have that capacity to do it. So it will be a partnership as opposed to a situation where we get involved in it directly and, as I say, run the risk of failed interventions which are hugely inflationary. The CBN's adoption of inflation targeting framework involves clear communication and collaboration with fiscal authorities to achieve price stability, potentially leading to lowered policy rates, stimulating investment, and creating job opportunities. Our MPC meeting, and a question was raised on this, is meeting on 26th and the 27th of February, and is also expected to review the situation and take further decisions on these important issues. And I couldn't agree more with the observation and question on the MPC, which is that ultimately such an important body like this must be able to ensure that whatever policy instruments and outcomes come from these particular discussions will trickle down, and the transmission effect will be quite commendable. And to be frank, these are one of the things that we've looked at in reinventing and resetting how the MPC is going to operate into the future. So I could not agree more with that. Distinguished senators, inflationary pressures are expected to decline in 2024 due to the CBN's inflation targeting policy, aimed to rein in inflation to 21.4%, aided by the improved agricultural productivity and easing global supply chain pressure. So to answer the question as to where inflation is likely to be, we believe that using the inflation targeting framework, which is being adopted by the central bank and going forward, obviously, by the MPC, we believe we will see inflation moderating to 21.4%. Exchange management. The Nigerian foreign exchange market is currently facing increased demand pressures, causing a continuous decline in the value of the naira. Factors contributing to this situation include speculative forex demand, inadequate forex supply, increased capital outflows, and excess liquidity. Again, I couldn't emphasize more because a number of questions have been raised on both the demand side and the supply side. And what we've attempted to do with the recent reforms on the foreign exchange market is to address the supply side. The supply, as we know, for a long period of time, has kept us in a very, very, very narrow bucket. The shift to and I will address this, the shift to a market-driven exchange rate was intended to create a stable macroeconomic environment and discourage currency hoarding. Currency hoarding, as we know, is one of the issues that creates a distortion on supply. However, short-term volatilities are attributed to arbitrage and speculation. To address exchange rate volatility, a comprehensive strategy has been initiated to enhance liquidity in the foreign exchange markets. This includes unifying FX market segments, clearing outstanding FX obligations, introducing new operational mechanisms for BDC and IMTOs, and enforcing the net open position limit, open market operations, and adjusting the remunerable standing deposit facility cap, amongst others. These are basically tools which we have applied in the course of the recent past to address the issues of supply heavily and also to discourage those who are speculating and distorting the value of our currency. Distinguished senators, these measures aimed at ensuring a more market-oriented mechanism for exchange rate determination, we believe will boost foreign exchange inflows, stabilize the exchange rate, and minimize its path through to domestic inflation. So basically what we're saying here is that we believe very strongly that these measures will help to stabilize the foreign exchange rate and indeed will help to minimize the distortions that a high exchange rate has into inflation, because they are closely related. Indeed, we have already started, these measures have already started yielding early results, and this is early times, and I couldn't agree more with the Minister of Finance with respect to the issue of the timing of reforms, that frankly there is no magic wand, unfortunately. I mean, these are issues we've had to grapple with. They're created over a period of time, a long period of time, and all we can do is try to use techniques, tools which we believe are taking us in the direction and moderate the concerns that we've all heard today. And I say that we've already started to begun to see shifts in a positive direction. Indeed, they have already started yielding with early results with significant interest from foreign portfolio investors, which was a concern, that have already begun to supply the much needed foreign exchange to the economy. For example, upwards of the past few days, we have had over $1 billion that have come into the market, over $1 billion. And this, quite frankly, is the answer to the question, because the question was raised as to how do we know that your policies are working? And in fact, we were challenged to say that in fact they are not. And I would argue that with the numbers speaking and saying what is going on, the market has been responding to the policies that we have put in place. Our measures aimed at improving US dollar supply into the Nigerian economy has significant potential in taming the volatility of the exchange rates and in turn moderating inflation. However, for these measures to be sustainable, we must as a country moderate our demand for foreign exchange. And distinguished members, I could not re-emphasize this. You see, there's so much the central bank can do with tools. We are working very hard. We're working very hard to bring back credibility to the central bank and to bring back credibility to many of the investors that have decided over the years, because of policies that were not inimical, to go elsewhere. Because with investors, I always say that investors go to where the environment is enabling. You don't have to beg anyone. You really don't have to beg. If you're doing the right things, investors will come. And I couldn't agree more, honestly, on the distinguished senator who spoke and emphasized on the issue of transparency. I couldn't agree more. That is what is going to bring the needed inflows into our economy, because for people to invest, they've got to take you seriously and believe that what you say is the right thing and that you're not going to tell them stories anytime after. And that is, but to also go, and we'll talk about some of the other things in Q&A as well. We'll answer specifically a number of the other issues that aren't covered here. We will do it. We will do it. But I also want to say that in establishing credibility, there are certain things that we needed to do. There are certain things we needed to do. For example, the issue of the past due obligations, the forwards. We needed to ensure that we could deal with them in an open and transparent manner. And it is for that reason we got the highly renowned Deloitte management to come and look at that, and we worked on the outcome of their report. And as I've said earlier, we've already moved towards settling a substantial number, and right now we are down to a more manageable figure. Of course, a lot has been asked with respect to those that were within the infracted category, which we are looking at very closely, and those who are responsible will be sanctioned accordingly. Distinguished senators, we must understand, but sorry, let me go back. However, for these measures to be sustainable, we must as a country moderate our demand for FX. I think this is very important. Honestly, CBN has no magic wand. We do not have. Our responsibility is in the process. If foreign exchange comes into us, we manage it in a way that is in best interest of the country, and we do not have excessive volatility. Okay, that's one. Our argument on the demand side is that we as Nigerians also must work together to moderate demand. Where there are opportunities for us to substitute locally, so we should. A couple of days ago, I made reference to the fact that a substantial amount of our foreign exchange over the course of the past few years had gone into medical and education, okay? And that in fact, the total quantum was more than our reserves. And I said that to prick people's minds and to start to think, well, maybe there are things we could do differently. Maybe there are things we can do differently. There was a lot of buzz on the social media, oh, he's saying this, that he's saying he doesn't want. That's not my point. The market will always determine what is what. But I do believe that if we are able to up our game in the area of medical, education, the need for people to go abroad and spend so much money will not arise. It will not. And I must also say that I was very encouraged also by some very top people in the private sector who I don't even know from anywhere, and who sent me messages to say, look, we heard your statement, and we went back to think that maybe the way we as an enterprise are embracing foreign goods and foreign products, and perhaps, you know, the need to go and do certain, to go and spend certain amounts of money in foreign countries, we can do the same thing here. We don't have to every time get up and go to the UK or to the United States. Let's start, put together a committee to start saying, well, look, how do we moderate these things? How do we moderate them? Because every single one has a responsibility, and no amount is too small. Distinguished senators, we must understand that the genuine issue impacting the exchange rate is the simultaneous decrease in the supply of and increase in the demand for US dollars. It is also clear that the task of stabilizing the exchange rate, while an official mandate of the CBN, would necessitate efforts beyond the bank itself, which is exactly what I'm saying. It will also include actions by corporates and individuals to reduce our frequent demand for the dollar for business and for personal needs. I would like to underscore the importance of the ongoing collaboration between the fiscal and monetary authorities, and particularly progress made on tackling a number of issues challenging our economy today. I couldn't overemphasize this. At the ministry, we are constantly in touch with the ministries of budget and planning, and of course the Ministry of Finance, and more recently also the Ministry of Agric. We consider our function, in addition to everything else, has been advisors to government. And we are right now trying to strengthen that capacity to ensure that at the end of the day, we can provide that creditably. The movement, the further collaboration between NNPC and the central bank is also a major step in that direction. And we're very happy that we have that opportunity to be of service to NNPC. And we also recognize that in keeping with that relationship, so also the challenge to ensure that we can meet all their demands at all points in time is heightened. In conclusion, distinguished senators, we understand the economic costs of these developments, not just for the economy, but also as they affect the ordinary Nigerians. And I always say this, you know, monetary policies are no monetary policies if they do not impact the people down the line. They are no monetary policies. So we must bear this in mind anytime we are putting the monetary policy tools into effect. And I have absolutely no doubt that with the MPC meeting that is going to take place at the end of February, it will be clear of the direction that the monetary policy is going. However, as I have mentioned in previous engagement, these costs are temporary, and our decisions will address a lot of fundamental issues bothering Nigeria's macroeconomic landscape and ultimately put us on a surer path to prosperity. What do I mean by this in addition to everything else? It is that the monetary side can do so much. The fiscal side also has a major part to play. The monetary side does help in cushioning the volatilities, but ultimately a lot of the things that have been said by the honorable ministers today, as they begin to kick in, it will moderate the inefficiencies in our system, I believe. I look forward to providing more of the answers. I will be providing more of the answers that haven't been touched here between my colleague here, the Deputy Governor of Economic Policy, and myself. We'll do that right away. So, yeah.
43 items. I think this has come up a number of times. And when we resumed at the bank, we realized that the bank had been involved in a number of areas which were not really central banking. One of it is trade policy. Central banks do not have responsibility, distinguished senators, for trade policy. Trade policy is a fiscal issue, and what happened was that 43 items were identified and denied foreign exchange. They were not banned. They were never banned from the borders. So what these 43 items were was actually 936 products from the HS code, and what it resulted in was that the items actually never stopped being imported. But the country collectively lost $1.4 billion between 2015 and 2019 because of the FX ban of these particular items. The second part is that they actually fueled inflation because it increased the prices of these products. And when we got in, we wanted to, as much as possible, ensure that the market is functioning. And many of the distortions that were present in the market was what we wanted to remove. And so this issue we discussed with the fiscal authorities, and our understanding is that there is a process now going through all these items to actually identify which ones need trade action and which ones do not. So that is on the first point. The second point is on the foreign exchange backlogs. In September, there was discussions around $7 billion of FX backlog transactions that the CBN was obligated to pay. In some international conversations, it was taken up to all the way to $10 to $11 billion. So when we went in, the first position was to ascertain how much is this exactly. And after ascertaining, we commenced a process where we said, okay, look, how do you settle these forwards in a way that is fair. The forwards came about by every month or so, the CBN would do auctions for foreign exchange. These auctions allowed customers to bid through their banks. The banks would submit the quotes, but the transactions had to be trade-backed, meaning that you either had to have a Form A or a Form M. So a lot of these transactions were then, starting from 2021, 22, and 23, were the ones that were outstanding. We started a process and then we engaged the banks to actually discuss this issue. And the banks themselves told us that there was a point where you would get called by the CBN to say you've been awarded $10 million, $20 million without really any documentation. So it raised an alarm bell with us, and we immediately engaged Deloitte Consulting to forensically verify these things. And what came out was a number of infractions. Infraction number one was where customers who had not even bid for anything would get allocated $5 million or $10 million, and those were documented. The other infraction was where customers who had bid for $200,000 would get $10 million awarded. The other infraction was for customers who were importing banned items, but these items would be brought in. So all these infractions have been tabulated, and what we have now done is we've written to the banks to say, explain these processes, because we have to give that right of reply. Many of them have responded, and this is the process that we are now going through these responses and ensuring that what we are going to pay is going to be what is valid, and then for the rest of it we will discuss with law enforcement on how to take this forward. In terms of investments, the governor has already talked about it, but let me just say one quick thing. At this time last year, the foreign exchange market, NAFEM, the official market, was trading $16 million a day. At high points, $40 million. In fact, as recent as 3 months ago, the highest traded was about $110 million. For the past 2 weeks now, the least that has been traded in the Nigerian foreign exchange market has been $400 million, which was even $500 million yesterday. So supply is coming back to the market in terms of FX. In terms of the other parts of supply, distinguished senators, we're working on the remittances with IMTOs. Last year, IMTOs brought back $3.2 billion to the country. In truth, the amount is closer to $18 to $20 billion. But the reason why this never shows up in the official statistics is because of the policies that CBN put in that capped how they could cost it between 2.5% plus or minus. We've removed that, and we had a meeting with them yesterday, and we can see the flows already picking up. In terms of inflation, I believe the governor has answered quite a bit of it, but the issue with inflation is that what we're now witnessing, in November, inflation actually reduced, core inflation. The rate at which it was increasing actually went down. What happened was that in December, it went back up, and usually in December, inflation takes off because of the festivities. We are hoping that over the next 2 quarters, we will be able to get inflation down to, as the governor has said, sub 22%, 21.3%. So I think I'll stop here, except if there's any particular questions that we have
to address this problem of food shortages. Because nobody will go to any farm that is not secured. Nobody. So we should please look towards that direction. So any planning we are doing in the area of increasing the food production or whatsoever, security should also form part of the strategy. To the central bank governor, I have listened with rapt attention. Yes, to some of your comments, I'm happy with what I'm hearing. Because in the past, I continue to wonder the kind of intervention being rendered by central banks. For instance, the National Art Theatre, central bank is paying millions of dollars to take over National Art Theatre. At a point, they are the major producer of rice in Nigeria, central bank. They call it an intervention program. And so many other interventions that are unwarranted. So listening to you to you today saying that you are taking your hands off all those kind of intervention, and playing more of advisory role, I think is the right step in the right direction. Also, you talked about transparency. I want to plead with you that the budget of Central Bank must be submitted before the National Assembly. That is where the transparency begins. That is where the transparency begins. In the past, the former Central Bank governor will be running from pillar to post when we ask for the budget of the Central Bank. Efforts that you have put into trying to reduce the effects of these forex or the exchange rates. I quite agree with you. We are now living normal Nigeria. In the past, we are borrowing money to suppress dollars, doing window dressing. So this single action of rate unification that is causing all this inconsistency we are seeing, this is the real Nigeria. I can vividly recollect the former Central Bank governor, in one of his engagements with me, he told me that he's doing a lot to ensure that the dollar does not increase. He's pressing it. And doing that, he was borrowing any available form from everywhere to suppress dollar from going up. Now, this administration has said, I can no longer do that. I don't want to do that, to borrow to suppress. Let dollar float on the normal rates. And that is the challenges we are facing. Because then we are doing window dressing. Now we are where we're supposed to be. But the only thing I quite agree, and everybody here also raised it, that we must provide the shock absorber to reduce this pain on Nigerians. And that is what all of us collectively must now look into. How do we address this situation? Since most of what we do in the past have been predicated on dollars and not on naira. You said something about education, that if we can do so much in the education, we'll be able to address the issue of students traveling abroad. Albert University just brought out their list of payment. It's $12,000. It was advertised in the newspaper, on the TV. The total tuition fee, $12,000 in Nigeria, where we only spend naira and kobo. So when we are doing more in this regard, we must look at it and do it holistically to address this issue and strategies we are talking about. To the Minister of Finance, in rounding up, I want to strongly... I'm sorry, as the chairman, that's why I'm using the opportunity. Now to the Minister of Finance, I want us to appeal. All we need is synergy between the monetary and the financial policy. Once the synergy is there, our issue or our problem will be reduced to the barest minimum. Because at every point in time, joint decision, joint policy making, and everything will take place. The CBN has admitted to the fact that they want to only play advisory role, while the coordinating minister will now be in charge to direct the affairs and give direction to the economy. So, once again, I want to thank you, my other chairman and other members.
Let me brief and to the point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Let me start by saying that those who have the responsibility to manage the Nigerian economy at this point, they have my sympathies. If you do, you are damned. Meaning, if you are left, if you are continuing from what you inherited, you are damned. If you also do as you have done, you are also still damned. But that is the price of leadership. I have just one question and 3 short comments. My colleagues have spoken about a number of economic issues, the reserve of the country, the MPC rate, but my people in Abeokuta and their counterparts in Ajaokuta and those in Jalingo, they do not care about the MPC rate that is coming up in February. They are not at home with nuances of the foreign reserve. The question they want me to ask the economic team, when will this pain subside? Despite the best effort that you are doing, the question they want is, when will this pain subside? When will this begin to materialize in their welfare and their well-being? 3 short comments. Number 1, what we have not seen is unified communication. If I'm not a senator with the opportunity of seeing the ministers and the CBN governor addressing the issue together, What you hear is the CBN governor making some pronouncement, very thoughtful pronouncement on arise. The Honorable Minister will also address the issue of physical. The Minister of Agriculture will say his own. When would the economic team come together as one team and address the nation together? Not in happenstance, not in public settings like this, when they will come out together and say we want to address the country on the challenges of our economy and what we are doing to address them. The second comment is also the fact that having this conversation in the chambers of National Assembly is important. It is good. But we need to also take this conversation down to the people who are feeling the pain. We need to find a way of communicating to our people at the grassroots, at the local level. We need to take this conversation to the state, to the zonal level, for people to understand what our issues are and what they're expected to do and what we are doing about it. And finally, Honorable Minister of Budget, finally, the 2024 budget that we passed by National Assembly, we passed the budget, even with the best of efforts. That budget could have experienced more scrutiny than we gave to it because of the short period. Isn't time now for us to begin to look at the budget, identify the priority areas that will give succor and solace to our people, and focus on them, both in our implementation and in finance, and luckily the Honorable Minister is also here again. So the question remains, when will this pain subside?
Thank you.
Backwards. A lot is happening in the country. You can see many people coming out. We can't eat all, we can't drink all, we can't do this. It is only those of us who are familiar with what you're doing that will be comfortable listening to you and relating with what you are saying. The people back home need to hear from us. They need to be in the same position with us. That is only when they will have hope. Hope that is going to be better. If you look at the devaluation of the consumer devaluation of the naira, it's having a lot of impact in the living crisis that is going on in the country. So for us to be able to connect with our people, we must relate with them. We must communicate this work, hard work that you're doing. We must communicate to our people. In the past, I realized there was a time where we had regional briefing, where ministers will go across the region to communicate to the people. They have like a town hall meeting where everybody will go and they will sit and they will hear from the people that are managing the country. And this, in my belief, make them to connect very well with our government. And I think this is something I think we should experiment with, or we should do to be able to communicate to our people what is going on and the hope that is so close to them, so they can be at peace. Thank you, Uncle. And I must communicate and I must thank you.
For our budget. Please, we don't have that much time. Please be brief. We said 800 naira to $1. The last time you came to the Senate, we asked you because some people told us, no, it's going to balance around 1,500, 1,700. So people out there believe it's going to be about 1,500. We in government system were saying 800. Now the reality is going to that 1,500. Are we sure some people somewhere are not manipulating the system? No, I have two questions. Second question for the finance minister. Mr. Minister, you are coordinating the economy and everything to do with the economy. Various ministries have various programs they are running. Some of these programs, you don't even know whether it will have the required impact. For example, Industry through SMEDA intends to share 50,000 naira for people who want to do business, who are registered. How much is 50,000 naira going to do big business for anybody, given that 50,000 is barely $30 or less? So, how are you coordinating all the programs from all these ministries targeting at the required objective of government? Do you have specific dashboards your own that you sit and just watch and say, this is what is happening here, no, let's take a break. No, you can't do that. Move this way. We need to know what you are doing about it.
Time up.
Agric, my Bishop, just one question. We usually give incentive to dry season farmers around April, May, sometimes, after they are finished farming, after they have harvested their crops. Now you are telling us today again that you are planning to roll out incentive for dry season farmers, of which I know, I'm a farmer, we have finished planting for a long time, we are expected to be harvested by April. April, May, we harvest. Now, why can't we plan? By now, I was thinking that we will plan for rainy season farmers. So by April, May, June, everything will be in place for the rainy season farmers. And then the dry season farmers will start from December. Between December, January, we give them whatever we want to give them. But I'm hearing the same old stories. We'll give them when they don't need it. And then, I don't know how we can continue like this. I want you to assure us that planning will begin immediately after the rainy season for dry season farmers. And then after the dry season, before the dry season farming ending, we will now give the rainy season farmers incentive so that we'll have much yield that we're expecting in the country.
Thank you.
Is a situation where we need to put in place a solution that is extraordinary. For dollars to naira to increase astronomically from 750 when we were operating or providing our budget here, from 750 today, we are looking at 1,500. Now, when we get to our people in Owo, my people in Akoko, my people in Ose, they will ask questions. When is dollar going to come down to what is appreciable? I want us today, instead of seeing this matter as mere academic exercise, so many presentations have been made here, beautiful, but we have to look at the implementation. I want us to go out from this auditorium with a categorical answer that in the next 1 month, in the next 2 months, that we are going to work out something that the whole Nigeria will be happy with us. Instead of us coming to say, yes, we are going to do this, we are going to do that. So it is good. So it may look so, this request might look so draconian, but that is the actual fact. We need to talk to our people. Thank you very much.
South, next to me. The big question is, what is the political impact? I know we're politicians here, but the people at home are hungry and they are tired of sound bites. We really need to give them a clear signal that things are going to get better soon. One such example, if I can posit my own view, is a sustained and substantial appreciation of the Naira that leads Nigerians to know that we are moving in the right direction. Thank you.
There is a solid mineral development fund, and consistently, maybe I want to stand up so that I can see, because I'm shocked. Consistently, the solid mineral sector has been funded budget-wise, and this is one sector that is supposed to generate huge sums of money for the economy, for Nigeria. What is being done with the solid mineral fund? Because the solid mineral sector is suffering, and we are aware that there are billions of naira, if not dollars, in the account. Year in, year out, nothing has been done for the solid minerals.
Then the second question is to the Minister of Agri. It's gladdening to hear that the federal government has said it's going to release tons of grains to cushion the effect of what is currently going on. What measures are being put in place? One, do you have the grains? Two, what measures are being put in place to make sure that this is not being siphoned or taken over by the powers that be in the country? And the central bank governor, I've not heard you from your speech, I've not heard you give us a short-term, medium-term, and a long-term plan for the stabilization of the forex.
Thank you.
Because it is naive, sir, for us here to raise the issues of monetary and fiscal policies to you. You have the best credentials. We know you. We know where you're coming from. When I sit here and I said I will prepare economic solutions to you, you've been selected because you are the very best that we have at the moment. If I'm here, please let me round up. I'm a senator. I have the privilege to ask this question. To propose solutions to you. I've been naive. I cannot deceive myself. Sir, the issues of monetary and fiscal policies are minute, very minute, to what is happening in this country. The fact of the matter, people are stealing these dollars because they know nothing will happen to them, and it is our responsibility as citizens to come up with solutions. These issues of dollar bribe and dollar taking is from top to bottom.
Time up.
Thank you.
Because I believe that is where we have problem. Why is our manufacturing sector not working? Thank you very much.
This new government, you have a responsibility to tell Nigerians where is the NNPC money is going, because the former governor of Central Bank is always asking on where is the dollars going. So this is one of the challenges we are having now in Nigeria, because this dollarization issue, as a nation that has more than 200 million people, we are not supposed to depend on dollar. We are supposed to stabilize our naira. We are supposed to put value addition to our currency. And if the previous government doesn't have the listening eye, so I believe you have the listening eye now to listen to the people of Nigeria. And it is very fundamental and important, since the Minister of Agriculture is here. Agriculture is a key to success of the economy of this country. If we can be reasonable enough, we will have a food security for this country. We cannot depend on importation. We are supposed to put our economy into an export-oriented economy for the betterment of the yet unborn generation. I think it's a duty, it's a responsibility on us. The budget minister is also here. If you look at the current inflationary problem, I think the budget we have done is as good as a Western budget, because most of the things has doubled more than 100% or 200%. So it is important you work with the committees, various committees of the legislature to ensure stability and responsibility of this renewed hope we have as an APC member. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are paid in dollars. Foreign contractors in Nigeria are paid in dollars, putting huge weight on the very and experience discriminatory payment in any currency other than the local currency. I think this has to be addressed, and addressed pretty soon, because we've seen it all happen. And I think it's unacceptable, it is discriminatory, it is obnoxious, and it has to stop as quickly as possible. The third question has to do with importation of goods.
Time up.
Why do we, just one more minute please, why do we not consider the fact that time has come to ban the importation of goods? and encourage local manufacturing and local production. This is the only way we can grow as a nation. If we keep relying on importation of goods, all goods can be banned. I'm glad, the CBN governor, that you mentioned the problem of capital flight because of medical treatment. That can be banned. That just one announcement from the president of this country that no more medical treatments abroad. And then of course, but you must make sure that you build up the medical facilities in our hospitals here. That can be done. So why is that not being done? Thank you, Chairman.
That's an opportunity for you to address Nigeria. And we have had it, and we have listened with rapt attention. But before I go forward, let me commend the government on some of the initiatives that have recently been carried out, like the single window initiative is a welcome development, and the recent approval given by the NNPC to ensure that all revenues from sales of oil go straight to the Central Bank of Nigeria. These are right steps in the right direction. We want to hear more of this. We want to listen to you. This is going to be a continuous engagement because we are all Nigerians and we deserve to have our countries back. And I want to say that on this side of the divide, we are ready to put out there enabling legislation that will assist this current administration to address all the economic challenges currently confronting us as a nation. Once again, I want to thank you for the opportunity and say that I wish you a journey message. Thank you, Mr.
I will wrap up just like the way I started, which is to acknowledge the fact that part of the challenges that are confronting us today are actually not the making of this current administration. And what this administration is doing is to reorganize or realign all of the distorted macroeconomic indices that should be directing the economy properly. So we salute the courage of the current administration. We know that it also will come with some pains, and that is what we are feeling. And again, even for the economic team, let me start with the comments that we have had from the Minister of Finance and also from the Governor of Central Bank. We salute all of your boldness too and all of the encouragement that you are giving in terms of finding solutions. And I must in particular acknowledge part of what I heard from the CBN governor in terms of the collaboration that we are beginning to see between the monetary and the fiscal side. I think these are exemplified by part of what we see between NNPC and the CBN and all of that, and we believe we should continue to work along that line. And for me, it is very, very important because what we expect from the CBN, what the economy expects, is a collaboration that provides a very low rational inflation so that the fiscal side too can continue to go on the path of economic growth. I think that, we need to continue along that trajectory. But I must also, make some points very clear, which are, one, they relate to the questions that I've asked, which I'm not sure were properly or they have been addressed. And they relate to what is expected in an economy, which is how do we moderate inflation. I said in my opening remarks, I made mention of the damage that we have in the variable called ways and means of 30 trillion is a major distortion. Mr. Governor, I didn't get a response for that. You also alluded to the 10 trillion again that also was probably was abused in terms of interventions and all of that. These are things that are creating the problem around inflation. If we do not have a solution for those things, honestly, we will still be struggling. I need us to really, think deeper about how do we deal with it. It is distorting the computation of the consumer, of the inflation index. It is distorting even interest rates in the system, and it is also mounting pressure on the fiscal side. So it's important that we look at it. And lastly, I also think for the Minister of Finance and Minister of Budget, I also think that you should also explain to us, now that, the budget is predicated on 800 naira, today it is, what we have is about 1,400. The difference, can we also use it
to reduce or wind down the deficit in the 2024 budget, so that again we do not compound the inflation pressure that we have. So on that note, I want to thank all our guests that have been here, and I hope. Okay, you will do that, okay, Mr. Chairman. So I leave that to you. So on my part, I want to say a big thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Minister coordinating the economy, we've heard from the Minister of National Planning, Agriculture, and the Governor of the Central Bank. I believe that there is hope. The renewed hope mantra that we're talking about, if actually we will put everything we've had here, implementing them, I believe within a very short time we'll be able to at least reach where we want to see ourselves. But yet, I would like the economic team to take this back. The issue of inflation, which the CBN is addressing, I think the CBN need to do more in that aspect. They need to do more. And then the area where we are taking money from NMPC, especially on these forward sales, I think is very detrimental to this country. Because at the end of the day, you will see that what the country is getting back or paying back is something which it does not translate to us getting to fill the gap that we expected to. Because if you look at it today, the $3.3 billion that we have taken, it has not changed anything in terms of the foreign exchange, which it's supposed to. So on that forward obligations that we have. And then the road infrastructure is one area that we must look at in order to solve some of the multiple problems that we're having, especially in prices of food items. Just apart from the subsidy removal, where there is increase in fuel prices, the roads are unmotorable. We need to do something, especially the Abuja, Kaduna, Kano road. We need to complete it. We need to also look at the Niger Bridge. You know those three critical items, three critical projects that a lot of money, Lagos Ibadan. We've been doing this thing for a very long time. I think there is need for us to do it because more of this money is going. I was given a report from NMPC. From a road of 400 and something, it came to 700 and something. Now they are asking for about 1.8 trillion. We're harming ourselves. So I think the team is all here. I must commend Mr. President because he has taken the bull by the horn in some of the decisions that he has taken in this country. It is left for us to be able to implement those things to reality. So with this, I thank you all, at least, for listening to us.
This opportunity. And the first thing I would say is just reflect on what, in terms of takeaways, what the governor of Central Bank has said here. About inflation, he has been very clear about the direction and even the quantum that inflation will be down substantially this year. And of course, we know what that means for exchange rate stability and even for the rate itself. So I think those are very clear takeaways that we can take from a monetary side. I'm sure we all thank him, and I'm sure we all wish him the very best in the strategies that are being implemented. And of course, we know it's a team effort. On the fiscal side, it's important to say that there is that collaboration, there is that synergy, and of course, in terms of building up oil revenue as well as non-oil revenue, the direction is clear. The achievements are already there. I won't disclose them, but I assure you the figures are going up substantially as predicted in the budget. May I just respond quickly to the issue of the funding of it is very well priced. It is below the pricing of Nigerian Eurobonds. So it's the cheaper form of financing. it is over 5 years, and the repayment is about in addition to the principal, is about $1 billion or so, which is 200 million per year. So the figures that have been bandied, I wonder why people do that. But people that said that we are paying back 4 times the amount we borrowed, it's like saying that somebody who pledges his house for, I don't know, 400 million and borrows 100 million, that is going to repay 400. That's just the way I can put that scenario. Above all, let me finish by also echoing what the governor of Central Bank said about transparency. It is critical to credibility and to everything that we are doing under the able leadership of Mr. President. So you will see in due course things like this ways, the vexed, ways and means, this huge figure. We will, just as the governor of Central Bank has subjected the backlog of 4 payments, he has subjected it to audit. We too will scrutinize that figure that we inherited in terms of ways and means. And likewise, as the senator said, we must ensure that the funds that NNPC earns are clear to all. They are transparently handled and they are fully accounted for. And in that direction, there will also be action taken to ensure the faithfulness in that all-important area of this country's oil revenue. Once again, Joint Chairman, distinguished senators, I thank you.
Join the Coordinating Minister of the Economy in appreciating all of you. Today, despite the eagerness to confront some of the challenges that are facing us, all of you commendably appreciated that the bold choices that were made were necessary to reposition our country. However, choices that are made or not made or are being made occasionally require calibration and other supportive measures in order for the gains to be felt. We feel very encouraged, and I'm sure we'll do more under the leadership of the Coordinating Minister of the Economy to take on board all the suggestions so that we will continue to interrogate what we are doing so as to deliver on the promises that have been made and on the achievement that we believe we have turned the bend and we are on our way to progress. We appreciate the urgency to do some more interventions in order to ensure that the positive effects are felt. There was a direct question on the effect on the 2024 budget. Even when the budget was brought, we appreciated that it's work in progress, just like government itself. When we brought the budget, we brought it with an exchange rate, for example, of 750. In your wisdom, you increase it. And Mr. President, graciously recognizing that democracy is a give and take, institutions matter, he accepted and signed into law. Today, exchange rates have moved because Central Bank, rightfully in the exercise of its own mandate, took some measures. And we are studying the effect, and we will calibrate with your support as always and ensure that we respond appropriately. Exchange rate for budget purposes is computed on an average basis, not on a spot basis. We are not where we are, but we hope with all the measures that are being taken, inflation will moderate and the distortionary effects of those movements will be less. I think Senator Alero and Senator Abiru made the issue of Senator Abiru more particularly, can we use additional revenue to lower debt service? Unfortunately, when exchange rate moves, it also has consequential effects on other prices, particularly fuel prices, electricity subsidy. Now we hope this will abate so that it will not even complicate the budget implementation process. But with your support, the country is turning the bend. Measures that have been taken, of which we have been, the budget and economic planning has been invited to all meetings by the coordinating Minister of the Economy, both in infrastructure, agriculture, power interventions. I'm sure the results will be seen immediately. Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to also follow suit with my elder brothers to thank you profoundly for this meeting, and we're working on this right direction to solve the food security problem in this country. I would like to highlight one very important aspect in which I did when I was here defending the budget of 2024. That is to say, we have the Malabo Agreement in which Nigeria is a co-signatory to the Comprehensive African Agricultural Development Program of the African Union, that agricultural provisions in the budget should be 10% of the total budget. And I think when we look at the 2024 budget, we are far cry away from that target. We have seen other countries that have reached that, Rwanda, for instance, and that's why they are actually progressing in the agricultural field. Briefly comment on the dry season farming. Yes, like I mentioned earlier, within the next 8 to 10 days, we should be able to roll out, and it's still a good window. We are not too late. We are not late, actually, and we should be able to make a significant impact as planned. So the other aspect is also on the issue of food reserve. I think a question was asked, are the grains available? I would say yes. The ones that we're about to release are available, and what measures are we to take to make sure that it is not siphoned or diverted? In the past, the usual thing is either there are institutions like NEMA that are being handed over the grains because they have the poverty index of the country. They know exactly where it is needed, and they have a policy of how they transport and distribute and store before it's being distributed to the needy. So we have started working on that. We have already instructed NEMA to give us their work plan so that we can, as quickly as possible, go ahead and take possession of those stock. As you are well aware, there is a committee under the chairman of the Chief of Staff to the Mr. President that has been working since Tuesday in trying to alleviate the situation at hand. And of course, the three of us, in fact, actually 4 of us here, are all part of that committee, and together with the Minister of Defense and Information. So other programs will be rolled out as soon as possible. I'm not in a position to say some of the programs, but are in the right direction, and I'm very happy that that will, at least in the short and immediate term, take care of some of these situations.
You can round up.
Thank you very much. First of all, again, to thank the distinguished members for hosting us today and for the very insightful questions and comments, and to say that we've noted all of them down. A good number are things that we are working on, and I would hope that we will be in a position to revert the next time we have our parley. However, I think it may be necessary to just quickly respond on a couple of issues. One, of course, interest rates and the direction of travel on that. That is not something that we at the central bank do. We expect that once the Monetary Policy Committee kicks in, then we begin to get a greater sense from that body as to where interest rates are heading. Then on the issue of exchange rate, which has come up a number of times, and bordering on volatility of exchange rate and also value and stabilization of exchange rate. In terms of volatility, we are using various tools to ensure that stability in terms of exchange rate happens sooner than later. And I think that is all I can say on that issue. On the issue of value of exchange rate, when is it going to go down? Well, the answer is I really can't tell you, other than to say that I do believe that once all these various measures kick in, there will be price discovery that will indeed be one that makes sense for everybody. But having said that, I think I also have to say something very important that hopefully should buttress the issue of the value of the Naira and really where we all stand. And that is, as I said earlier, that is definitely not the exclusive preserve of the central bank. It is not. And we all have a responsibility in ensuring that demand and supply, we are working as much as possible on supply, but on the demand side, we do have to all moderate our various interests on that to ensure that demand begins to come to a level that is sustainable. It's sustainable. Because even if the central bank is able to moderate through tools the value of the exchange rate, if these other things don't kick in over a period of time, it may buy us relief, but we go back to the same old situation. So you have an exchange rate that is at a certain level, you're happy, you go away. But if other issues don't come in, some of which have been mentioned here today with respect to productive capacity and all that, then we're just kicking the can further down the line. I think I just want to make that clear that that is the case. I will also say something else, and that is on the issue of confidence. Because in all this, confidence is very important. I assumed responsibility in the Apex Bank a few months ago. And at that point in time, there was a crisis of confidence. And I must say that we have worked very hard and very tirelessly to ensure that that crisis of confidence has been diluted and that international investors are happier to come and invest in our economy. And I can tell you that I've seen that result play out. From the time I took office to now, I can see a much greater interest. Investors who would come, ask questions, and as you know, foreign investors, they are not emotional about these things. They ask the right questions, they've seen how things have played out in other countries, and they can tell whether you are sincere or not. And over a period of time, over these past few months, we have seen an increase in appetite for Nigeria. As a result of which, what you've seen recently, and I don't want us to take it lightly by any stretch of imagination, that the volume of trading in the foreign exchange market in the past few days has exceeded what we have seen in years. That is a solid sign of return to confidence in our economy. In addition to that, you will find out that when you look at what the rating agencies, and I know that when they come, they do also sometimes reach out to this distinguished group, they have given us a more positive outlook. Before they said, okay, we're here, now they are saying they can see good efforts and a positive outcome into the future. I have no doubt in my mind that if we continue in this trajectory, we will bring Nigeria back to what we have lost. I have no doubt in my mind. I do accept that in the intervening period, there will be pains. There will be pains. And this is why it took time to mention that inflation will come down significantly between now and the end of the year. I said that. I made that comment. I gave you a figure. I gave you a figure. What I will just sue for is continued cooperation with the central bank. We need all the help we can get. We are not saying that we have all the answers. We don't. And where we are falling short, we are very happy to be told we are and seeing how we can up the game. We know and we fully appreciate our responsibility to Nigerians. But I also want Nigerians to understand the responsibilities to themselves. Okay, it's not, if you're just looking at the central bank alone, there is a limit to what we can do. We can't do everything. It's a joint collaborative effort, which I'm confident that if we do well, we will get out of the very difficult situation we are in. Already, the signs are showing a positive outcome. So thank you very much for hosting us today.
The distinguished ladies and gentlemen who attended this session. This is just the beginning. I think going forward, we shall continue to engage ourselves so that we can find some viable solutions to the challenges that face this nation. Thank you once again, and I wish everyone a fruitful journey to your offices and other respective destinations. I know the Minister of Agriculture also traveled to Kano. I wish you a very safe flight and journey. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you.